What's this mean? Money, right? How do you get going in a business? You have to start off and you have to get capital. Sometimes it's from your own savings, or you may partner with somebody. So during our first 5 years, we partnered with the limited partnership, the Nielsen family, who helped us do our first 5 projects. Then we got an institutional, a big financial group called Prudential, who helped us finance some of our projects in what are called joint ventures. Familiar with joint ventures, Partnering together. But that still wasn't the ability to help us grow as far as we wanted to. So in 2004, we decided to take the company public on the New York Stock Exchange. Let me tell you, that's not a simple thing to do, and I don't take hardly any of the credit for that. Other people helped us. There's other people that helped us do that. Shortly thereafter, within 1 year, we acquired another company called Storage USA, which increased our company 5-fold. That was probably more of a difficult undertaking than going public. And then during the last 5 years, Extra Space Storage has outperformed its competition in the public storage REIT for 19 straight quarters. Let me just talk about where that's brought us to. It's brought us basically from almost nothing to being a multi-billion-dollar company. Again, I'm not an owner of much of this. I have a little bit of stock, but that's other people's money, by the way. We have over 2,000 employees with over 800 properties in 34 states, including, as you'll see, we have lots of properties throughout the United States. And you'll see we even have 2 here in Hawaii that we acquired. So these were not built here, but this one over in Kapolei is an acquisition. We've also built projects. This is one in Hialeah, Florida, which is right next to Miami. Again, you'll see most of what we've built in the last few years are multi-story projects. When we first started out, a lot of our projects were single-story, almost like a row of garages. Some of you may have seen that type of storage facility. Most of what we build in the last few years are high-rise because the land is so valuable. This is a project in a suburb of Chicago in Tinley Park. And this one is what we call a conversion in Baltimore, Maryland. That building, if you can believe it, used to be a parking garage. And we basically transformed that project into a storage facility. So where there used to be a lot of cars, there's now individual rooms and lockers where people store their stuff. What's been the pattern for Extra Space to grow? Really 3 fundamental things here. First, development. This has been what I've focused on. I was the Senior Vice President of Development, and this is what we've done all through the years, was build new projects. Another part of growth is acquisitions, buying properties that you can take from bringing your own sense of management and skills and processes to being a better property. And third, management contracts. That means we've taken over properties and managed them for other owners, but they have our name on it. That's not always through franchise, but it's franchise-like management growth. This has left us with a portfolio, and I'm saying left us. I've actually just recently left the company in the last few months, but there's 3 types of properties that Extra Space has. Wholly owned, which means the company owns all of them. Joint ventures, that's where even our majority of our projects with various joint venture partners, the PRE is Prudential Real Estate, and some others, as well as managed properties. Those are properties that, again, we manage on behalf of other people. They like what we do, and they take upon them our name to see that the project can go, hopefully, rent a little bit better and bring more returns to them. By doing joint ventures with various people, it's given us a flexibility to do more potential deals. For those of you, as you start a business, you've got to think of, how am I going to grow? You usually start with yourself and or a partner or two, but growth coming through partners, and in our case, joint venture institutional partners, allowed a very sharp rise in our growth. But what happened a couple of years ago? Major recession hit America. I'm not quite certain how hard it hit Hawaii. I know it hit here too. But there's basically was almost a shutdown of a certain type of mortgage market. Many of you may not know about CMBS-backed mortgages, but it's a collateral mortgage-backed security where mortgages were brought together and then packaged and resold through Wall Street. Well, that, you may have heard of how many of you have heard of subprime market problem in housing, right? People lent money for homes. People didn't put enough down payment, and some of them weren't really good. That's in our individual homes. But in the commercial business, the shopping centers, the apartment buildings, or self-storage, we depend on these types of mortgages as mortgages come due to refinance. Well, let me tell you how bad this got. The second largest mall developer in America went bankrupt because they couldn't refinance one mortgage for one of their shopping centers in Las Vegas. Well, that put the scare into public real estate companies like Extra Space and others as to how we're going to do it. But there was a unique difference. We didn't need to get one big loan for our shopping center. We had individual properties that needed maybe $4 to $7 million loans. And so we were able to survive by doing these things. We preserved capital. We stopped paying quite as much dividends. We concentrated in getting new loans. We reached out to nearly 800 banks to get loans close from small little banks that were right by some of our properties. And we started to phase out development, because development, unfortunately, even though I love it, and that's what I've done all my life, it takes a long time to start to pay back. And we really started to focus on our operational details to help us perform better. What did that lead us to? I don't have a pointer here, but if you look on these slides, over the past 19 quarters, Extra Space has outperformed our industry, basically almost since we went public. If you look on that, there's kind of a green and then a yellow and a gray. The gray is the key one. It's what's called NOI. Some of you are business students, some may not be. NOI is net operating income. It's the income. So you have profit, less expenses, leaves you with income. And we've been able to outperform others in our field during that time period. And it's a lot due to how we run the business. And that's a key point I want all of you to take home today if possible. It's not necessarily what you sell. It's how you sell it. That's your business. Okay? Lots of people sell hamburgers, but there's a certain way that McDonald's does it versus Burger King. Okay? Businesses are a lot about how you sell that we're going to talk about, that process. We're going to talk about three things in doing that: people, properties, and processes. Let's talk about people for a minute. What I've found is a fundamental truth in people is you need to have the right people in the right jobs, and the right people always involves great leaders. Second, we'll talk about the power of partnering or using teams. This is just a picture of some of the leaders in Extra Space. The man in the foreground is Ken Woolley that I mentioned to you earlier, our CEO. But one of the things that's important is the man that's on the other side of Mr. Woolley is Mr. Carl Haas. He was head of operations at Storage USA, this company we took over. You know what we did? We didn't just say, oh, we're taking over and all you guys are gone. We brought him on board and have him still running and doing, I might mention, quite successfully, all of our operations. He's done a fantastic job getting the right people in the right spot. What do leaders do? All of you have been leaders or have worked with leaders. What do leaders do? Well, obviously they have vision. They help guide and direct us. But I want to read this one thing to you. They lead with a conscious choice and fearless resolve to produce sustained results, listening to others. Now think about that. What is it? That's important, is to lead with resolve, okay? Combined with giving recognition to others for positive results and accepting personal responsibilities to fix problems. This is also found, hopefully some of you have read maybe Good to Great. This is somewhat similar to what is talked about in that book. Let me tell the story of one of our great leaders, Ken Woolley, being involved. Here we were a company, pretty small, and he had this vision of how we could become this big company. So what did we do? We first of all went public, but the bigger goal was, how do we buy out Storage USA? And the strength of character, of pushing, we are going to do this, having that positive attitude was very important. In fact, I don't know if anybody's thinking of law, but the list of items, and Jim could probably relate to this in real estate, the list of documents that needed to be done was 48 pages long. So there might be 20 things to a page times 48. That's how much it took in order to do that acquisition of Storage USA. Our legal department was just unbelievably involved. Giving recognition to others. One of the great moments of my life was being there at the ringing of the bell at the New York Stock Exchange. That's an exciting thing to do. And it was a team. You'll see there's a lot of us that were up there. We actually got to ring it twice, which was really amazing. We rang it first when we went public, and then we rang the closing bell within about a year's time when we bought over Storage USA. What fun. Recognize, this is a correct principle, recognize and compliment other people for their part of your success. Now I mentioned that other part too, that, let's see, accepting personal responsibility to fix problems. You know, we sometimes had joint venture people that where sometimes the issues got a little tricky. Ken Woolley was still able to personally be involved to help smooth that out. Those are just some principles of being a leader. The Savior is, of course, the greatest teacher, right? And what did he call his own apostles? He says, you're not servants. What did he call them? I've talked about it here in John 15:15. He says, I have called you friends. Well, have any of you ever been treated as a servant or as an inferior? Anybody besides me feeling that? Okay. I think lots of us have had that opportunity that we wish wasn't our opportunity. There's a huge difference of being a friend or colleague. So yes, I'm talking today about lessons from Extra Space. This is true for whatever endeavor you go into. It's going to be true in your marriage relationships. It's going to be true in how you serve in the church. It's going to be true in your business. Treat people honestly as colleagues and friends. When you do that, you feel a great level of commitment when you feel you're a friend. Now contrast that versus what I think is one of the most powerful lessons on human development and relationships in Doctrine and Covenants, section 121, verse 39. You all know that story. What does it say? When somebody starts to get a little bit of power, what happens? They start to exercise unrighteous dominion. Okay? That happens, you know, the Lord knows what he's talking about. That happens so much. And so we need to move away from that, but what does the scripture say right after that? Instead of using unrighteous dominion, do what? Share kindness and knowledge, right? What's it say? By kindness and knowledge. That's how leaders can best influence those around them. Joseph Smith taught the principle, I teach them correct principles and they govern themselves. This is a fundamental aspect that I hope all of us can learn. Here he was running a church from he didn't have cell phones and all that to call. He was able to help guide the church from Kirtland to Nauvoo, at some point New York, all over. How was he able to do that? Teach correct principles and let them govern themselves. Now, the correct principles may have great manuals in business, okay? You may have very detailed manuals, but you still let people govern themselves. What are some of the pitfalls that most leaders have? Unfortunately, we talked about we sometimes fail to admit our mistakes, and we need to avoid this unrighteous dominion. But what are these other couple things I put up there? Jim Ritchie knew my father. They were both serving as mission presidents, and my father was a psychologist. Knew many, many people and their psychological profile. One of the things he talked about is how many leaders have firm, fixed ideas, but some of them are false. And so if you're a leader, you've got to recognize that sometimes not everything you think is perfectly right, okay? Some of them may be false. Another aspect of leadership that you have to use caution. You need to use compassion, particularly when it comes time that you need to terminate someone. Everybody's human. Everybody needs to feel they are of personal worth. Yes, they may not be the right person for your organization, but compassion. And the fourth point, which is you need to train successors. Let me tell you, there are scores of fantastic companies that have been around where there was no successor planned to take in. So those are some of the cautions and attributes of great leaders. Let's talk about this aspect of people, the main topic of people. The power of partnering and the use of teams. Well, I love this phrase. Some of you have maybe heard it. No one of us is smarter than all of us. Think of that. No one of us is smarter than all of us. You may be as smart as you possibly can be, but you can't be smarter than more people in your group. I use that frequently, that both saying that and in our group. And when you partner, you want to partner with people with different skills and abilities, but having the same attitude. Where are we going to go? Are we going to live by the same core values? Well, power of partnering. The Lord himself taught this in the Old Testament, didn't he? He said, it is not good for man to be alone. Okay? You need to find an eternal companion. See a couple here, I hope, and others. That is so important. Find a fantastic eternal partner like I found Sean. Okay? Find that partner. But that's true in business, to partner. Second of all, the concept of synergy. Have any of you ever heard of synergy? A few of you have. Synergy is the concept that says 2 plus 2 can equal 5 or more. Okay? I want you to picture in your mind for a minute oxen. You remember the pioneers and oxen? What do they put over their heads?
Yoke.
A yoke, exactly. And you know what they found? If you take the strength of one oxen, the most he might be able to pull, and I could be wrong on this, I need probably Brother Ritchie to know the exact amount. Let's say he can pull 1,000 pounds, and so can the other one pull 1,000. But when you yoke them together, guess what? They can pull more than 2,000 pounds, more than the sum. Okay? That's what synergy is about. And that happens in business. You can achieve more when you're in a partnership or a team relationship. Lessons learned from Extra Space. I told you how at first we had an angel partner, the Nielsen's, when we were very young. We needed capital, but growth required even more. We went to banks. I remember going into banks and they said, what is this self-storage? It was a new industry. They didn't know what it was. This is more risky than an ice skating rink, you know. We moved from those different levels of getting capital, of selling people on that, and you'll need to do that, whatever your business might be. You'll need to get capital. Then we partnered with Prudential. Then we went public. Those all mean you need others. You need others to help you financially. This next point, though, is very important because I presume that most of you are going to start a small business. And do you know what's the number one reason for failure of small businesses? Number one is a technical expert who tries to go it alone. Again, the reason for partnering. Strengthen yourself. Create a team if at all possible. Okay? Sorry if this is, actually I'm not sorry. This is the Lord's University here in Hawaii. I'm using a few scriptures. In 1 Corinthians 12, verse 21 and 30, it talks about how the hand or the eye cannot say to each other, hey, I don't need you, hand. The eye can't say that, and the hand can't say it to the eye. Okay? The body is not one member, but many. And then I love the story, and I think it was November 2008, Elder Uchtdorf taught the story about lifting a piano. Do you remember that? Yeah. He said, stand closely together and lift, right? That's true of overcoming obstacles. When you have difficulties in whatever organization you're involved in, being close together and lifting together, okay? These are correct principles, in my opinion, as to how we can do things. Okay, we talked about people. Let's move to properties or assets. When you build a business, you're building assets. I would present to you that it's important that you build long-term value. Long-term value. It's not storage. We're talking about whatever business you're involved in. Whatever business you're involved in with your spouse. That's a long-term relationship, isn't it? So build long-term, create value in that. And I'm going to talk about curb appeal for our drive-up customers in our particular business. I showed you a couple of properties. This is one we just completed in Oakland, California. This was nominated as the Facility of the Year for the self-storage industry. Again, trying to make it clean, attractive. It's not just a plain old box. This was important for extra space. But my favorite project is this one. This is one. Have you ever seen something like that? That's a storage building. That's where people store their stuff. This is in Naples, just outside of Naples, Florida, Bonita Springs. I consider this the Taj Mahal of self-storage. It's just unbelievable. Why did we do it? Well, we did some of our own, but partly it was right next to a big regional mall. And the regional mall people were very concerned as to what their mall was going to have. So we, on entering this, there's 14 colors there. Look at all the elevations. That's part of what we're doing. Long-term value. Curb appeal is so critical to attract our customers. You're creating a brand image for Main Street, meaning the people that come by. I think I may have lost this. Sorry, for the people that drive by, that's your Main Street people, but also for us being Wall Street. You wouldn't believe it when we'd go on these tours about twice a year. Some of these Wall Street analysts would fly into San Francisco and would go see some of our properties, and they'd look at ours and go, wow, this is beautiful. Okay, it makes an impression. That was part of our strategy. People make that rental decision when what they see is what they're getting. You know what? People used to think of something that was a, quote, storage shed, something with barbed wire around it. That, as you can see from what I've shown up here, totally different things. Okay, we've talked about people, right? We've talked about the importance of people in your business. We've talked about properties and creating long-term value. Let's talk about the third thing, and this is as important as anything you do in your business. You are going to create some unique processes. How you sell is your real product. Where does that start? It starts with disciplined planning, your own passions, creating core values and correct principles. Okay? You need to think out, what am I going to do? Am I going to start this business? And hopefully many of you are taking these ideas back to your own country where you can take some of the wonderful things you're learning here at BYU Hawaii and take them back and develop that company into something that helps you not only survive but thrive. So think about what those again, the concept that Brother Richie has talked about, the think, the plan, the do, about your own passions, okay? You need to sell the experience, and then I'm going to talk just real briefly about technological aspects can accelerate your growth. They don't necessarily always give the growth, they can accelerate it, and some of the aspects of going public. Let me just kind of go through these fairly quickly with you. You need to quantify, analyze, and adapt. You need to understand who you are as a company. You need to know really well what is good about your company. What about your competition? What about the government regulations? What's going on? And then, then comes some of the hard part. What's that next one say? Analyze the facts. Analyze. Figure it out. I understand you're actually doing something at the PCC that you're studying out. I don't know if any of you are involved in that, but I understand you're studying out customer satisfaction, figuring out even what they like while it's going on. Is that correct, that some of that's going on? You need to really know what it is that people like and don't like. And then understand what are your economic drivers. People sometimes say, oh, I want to be a multimillionaire. I want to be... What is it really is going to make you happy, and what do you need to be economically? And most importantly is your passions. While I was attending BYU, one of my most important classes I had was where we invited professors in to share the most important book in their life outside the scriptures. And Brother Robert K. Thomas came in and shared a book with us called Man's Search for Meaning. I hope some of you, if you never read any other book besides your own textbooks, read Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. In it, he talks about the difference between people in a Nazi concentration camp who have a purpose, a passion that they need to live for, versus the other people who are also starving, skin and bones, and the difference of those people who just basically give up and die. This has been important. I can give you my testimony that's been important in my life, to know that you need to have something passionate in your life. For me, in Extra Space, it's been to create beautiful properties where formerly there was matter less organized or ugly, and to create meaningful jobs. And I feel that's been something that we've been able to accomplish at Extra Space. Okay, sometimes it's been a vacant lot, but literally sometimes a junkyard. And tearing that down and building some of these beautiful buildings. That gives me pleasure, passion, that I'm willing to get up early or work late. Find a business for you that you can feel passionate about. And then the concept of adapting. You need to test and tweak. Okay? You know what I mean by tweak? It means fine-tuning. Making your business even a little bit better. Tightening it down as to where that's going to go. The process of planning and core values. Your business isn't your life. Unfortunately, some people in some societies, and even in the U.S., sometimes it's all about their business. But you know what? We're children of God, and it isn't all about business. You need to have goals about your family, about your service, about what you give to your community, about your church work. Have that blessed. Let me tell you a quick story. Some of you, actually, Mitt Romney. I'm certain most of you have heard of Mitt Romney. He was our bishop and our stake president. We were in that ward back in Boston with the wheelwrights. There was an experience where one of the people working in his company had a daughter that was kidnapped. Now, the company is Bain Capital. They were a billion-dollar company. But what did Mitt decide? He said, you know what? We're going to shut down the business now and go try and find that girl. Now, the good part of the story is they were able to find her. But that's putting prioritization and having goals outside just the pure get the buck goal, right? They may have lost a couple of contracts those few days, but they had goals outside of just the business. In planning your business, you need to plan a brand. Differentiate your business from something else and target towards that. Okay? Sometimes just doing a little bit different colors scheme in your business, the smell. My daughter, when I asked her, what's your favorite retail store? She said, Anthropologie. I said, well, why? I mean, I hadn't even known about that. She said, even they sometimes have scents in the store. She loves how it feels. Make your business something that people can experience. Okay? Next, use guidance correcting strategies. Just like a missile, when they fire a missile at a target, they don't just go straight at it. They sometimes have to go over terrain, or they may see something in the way and they have to maneuver around it. That's what you have to do in business. Don't you, Jim? You had to do it. You have to be able to think on your feet and move around to keep that goal in mind. Just like Ken Woolley said, we're going to buy Storage USA. Okay? You keep that goal in mind and you maneuver and you keep your eye on that ball to get there. And it changes a little bit. For us, for Ken Woolley and myself at Extra Space, it was integrity that was our key core value. We weren't going to give up. Let me tell you just a quick story. That we had an opportunity. I mentioned how we did some joint ventures with Prudential. We had agreed to build this project in San Francisco for X amount of dollars. Well, when it all came down to it, we went over budget, $1.5 million. Cost, no profit, cost. But we kept our integrity and sold it into that joint venture. That's pretty tough to do, rather than pass it on. There were things under the ground that we could point fingers at whatever. The reports didn't say it, but you know what? We had agreed to do that. One of the blessings for us was that same group of investors and some of their other partners, when we later wanted to buy Storage USA, they're the ones that came back with $2.3 billion that they invested with us. So yes, we had lost some money, but they believed and trusted in us. Integrity as a core value is something that I would highly recommend you think of for your business, for what you're going to do. We felt so strongly about it when we took over Storage USA, we started to visit all these properties around the country. Hundreds of properties. They had never seen a CEO out in Indiana or wherever we happened to have bought these properties. But we came there and expressed our concern for them and tried to share certain core values. We helped build that team. I mentioned how, you saw in the earlier pictures how we had lots of different exteriors. But Extra Space, and in business in general, to try to have consistency is critical for branding. We try to have a very upbeat, positive, clean-looking rental office at all of our facilities. We try to have the same systems. We do. How we run our business, okay? We use call centers to help focus in on those rentals, okay? That's part of what we do. When you set up your business, you want to organize and train with correct principles. This is really important. You don't want to be, a company starts out usually with you or you and your partner, but you don't want your company to be person dependent. Okay, we didn't want it to just be Ken. Ken's over in Russia right now, and the company's doing very well. I've left the company. It's doing great. The stock's gone up nearly almost $3 in the last 5 or 6 months. You need to have a company where there's systems. It's almost foolproof systems. Okay? That's how you can be a successful company. Almost like whether it is a literal franchise or not, okay? Or franchise-like. That's how you grow. When it becomes literally the systems, the correct principles help it run. Okay, here's an example here for you. Many of you work over at the Polynesian Cultural Center. Why is it the #1 paid tourist attraction versus everything else, all in Hawaii? Why? I would present to you, it's because of a couple of things. It's the unique experience, and it's the reputation. People come here because it's a unique experience and the reputation. There's a consistency in the property, in the performances, in the authenticity of the people. And people appreciate that. People don't want to go into even in places, Starbucks. Now, we don't drink coffee, most of us probably here, but why is Starbucks so successful? It isn't because of the coffee. In a blind test, Dunkin' Donut coffee is better than Starbucks. It's because of the experience, what they feel when they go in there, and they're treating themselves to something special. Using technology. You can use technology to grow. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but what you set up with your software, one of the great things Extra Space did is we have a revenue management. We could test things out to know we'd try 100 stores, and we know if we offer this one versus this, it's going to help. Many of you are way better than I am, and all of you are, on probably doing things on the internet. But what you do on that, web-based, you can do a lot of things and it's for free. You can learn how to tweak, whether you make the offer with a big picture or a little picture, or a button that you push here, test it out. That's what happened for us in marketing. In our early days of marketing, you know what we used to do? And I thought it was pretty cool. We taped a $20 bill to the phone so our managers would remember, wow, this phone call is important. Pick it up. Don't just let the phone ring. Go to answering. We're way beyond that technologically. We have a call center that answers those calls. And they're specifically trained to help people decide what place they want to rent, how, and to make that reservation. Well, what did we learn going public? Just quickly, what are the major reasons? The major reasons people go public is to tap into the equity markets for financial growth. To get people to buy your stock, and it's not necessarily debt. You do return people their dividends on their stock, but it certainly helped us grow to become where it was. Second, and this was pretty important, Sean talked to you about how we had personal guarantees. I hope you recognize that most of you in starting a business are going to put it all on the line. All the money that you have. Personal guarantees meant that if one of our projects went bad, Sean and I, our own house could be taken, our car. One of the reasons we went public was to move away from that and have the corporate start to make the promises, which gave us a little bit, Sean and I could feel a little bit safer that we weren't going to lose our car if one of the properties went bad. Third, it helps ownership interests become more liquid. They're able to sell stock. But there are other impacts of going public. And that's, unfortunately, you lose some control. That's just inherent with being a public company. You have increased scrutiny and public reporting. That probably has some good and pluses to it, but clearly they're expecting a lot when those people can analyze and they're going, well, why do you do this? Why are you doing that? What's going on? And for most people, the corporate culture is a little bit negatively affected because you're primarily a little bit bigger organization. There's a little bit more distance. Those are some of the things about it happening. Let me conclude here with some of the key points and give you a challenge. We've talked about getting the right people. I truly have a testimony, and I'm grateful that I was able to partner with Ken and others in our organization. Getting people that can do the right thing, having leaders, and the power of partnering. Whatever choice you take, whether it's just in your home business, starting something else, finding an eternal companion partner, those are important, correct principles in my opinion. Second, we talked about properties. Properties where you build the long-term value in those assets. And you learn to create a brand, differentiate yourself, from some other company. And third, your unique processes. How you do your business based upon your passions, not my passions, your passions. What are you going to feel strongly about? Your core values. I've told you about one of ours, of integrity. Hopefully you'll choose important core values that mean a lot to you. Tweaking systems, okay, that concept of making things a little bit better by testing it out and trying it out. Just like here at the PCC, finding out what customer satisfaction, what do they really like about the breath of life? What parts do they really like? Where is it not quite as favorable? Studying, boy, you got a great opportunity. You know what? Sean and I got to go to the temple. This is a great opportunity. You live in a beautiful place to have the temple where you can learn, and you have great professors and fellow students here, and many of you can work at the PCC and learn real life experiences. Great blessing. Take those things back to wherever your home is and to your businesses. And then you sell the experience using management with correct principles. Well, I'm not going to go over all these. There were a lot of scriptures we talked about. If any of you want this later, if you want to give me an email or something, I'm certain I can share some of these with you. If Jim wants that to be done, I don't know, about scriptures. But let me just conclude with this challenge. You've been sitting here for at least 45 minutes. Probably some are going, great, I'm getting out of here. Great. But what's in it for you? Take something out of it today. What have you learned that can be applied to you? And what actions can you take? I'd challenge you to do a couple of three things. This is tying in with Brother Richie's concept. Commit to write down some thoughts that come to you from pondering. Think about it, in other words. Second, pray for guidance. Plan things out. Plan things out as you are doing here in the CIE. Plan out what you want to do in your business so that you can thrive. And third, do what inspires you. Think, plan, do. Great concept, Brother Richie. Great concept, great strategy. Do that. Now, I understand there's going to be this Conference of Champions, right, here in March, competition. I encourage you to be involved in it. There's cash prizes. My gosh, that's wonderful. We didn't have this when I was in college. Think it through, and there's some cash prizes for you in that. So go out and win. Last of all, my testimony. Christ said, all things are possible to him that believeth. I know you can do it. You can know you can do it. And I pray the Lord will bless and help each of you do that which he has given you to do. And it's my prayer that you'll do that in Jesus Christ's name. Amen. Amen. Thank you all very much.